Hey everybody, Mike Prasad. Happy to be here. This is really cool, actually. I like all the screens. Things I love, things I like. I'm all about branding. Everything I do, branding is the first step I make, whether it's a personal project, whether it's my friend who's an actress, and I'm like, she wants to know how she wants to get out there. I go, create your brand, figure out what that is first. So branding is a big part of everything I do. Why am I here? Why should you frankly give a damn? If this was in a brochure that was handed out before, which didn't exist, it would say that I'm here to give you the secret to social media specifically. And it's kind of a joke because the secret is, it's not about social media. The secret to promotion and promoting yourself in social media or your project isn't about numbers, because you can quite frankly buy those. And especially in LA and in San Francisco, California as a whole, everyone's a social media expert, including some people's mothers. Now, most of these experts will tell you it's not really about they'll say it's about transparency, but it's really not about that. That's part of it, but it's not what makes or breaks it. Other people will tell you it's about engagement, and it is. That's a really key part of it, but it's not what drives it. It's really about everything else. And when I say that, social media is just one of many channels. I think anyone who's done a project will know that you have your friends, you have flyers, you have radio, you have television, you have internet. Social media is just another channel. It's a set of tools, like anything else, that happens to provide a way to scale. So if you have 5 friends, maybe you can have 500, maybe you can have 5,000, maybe you go from there. But ultimately, it's just a bunch of mechanisms. And like any mechanism or tool, you've got to use the right one. So I kind of define success in social media as contextual relevance, in the sense that, is what you're doing relevant to the audience you're targeting? And do you know why? I want to give you a couple strategies that I've used that have provided a lot of success in social media repeatedly, not just once, not just twice, but over and over again, that I think are pretty easy, and plus they have really silly names. Like my favorite, which is the circle of shiny. Because everyone loves shiny things, and why not? So here's 5 strategies for success in social media. Well, I should say strategies or perspectives. The first one being brand like candy, which I think is actually really easy in entertainment. So the idea is candy looks delicious. Looking at that, I doubt anyone here can guess what the flavors are. I don't even know what the flavors are. But they look delicious. At least enough that I want to give it a bite. I want to give it a taste. You go into a nice chocolate shop, there's all this array of chocolates, and some stand out, some don't, but everyone's individual. And in that individuality, they have specific qualities that communicate something that you might find desirable. And if it's chocolate, I just like chocolate, so it always looks good. But a good brand is a caricature. And it communicates a persona, and it sets the stage for your storyline or for whatever else that customer is going to engage or the audience will engage into. It sets the stage for the story. But the best brands create a culture. And you'll see this in products with Apple. You'll see that in food with Kogi Barbecue. And you'll see that in web series with The Guild, for example. Or Star Trek or Star Wars, anything like that. Your brand is the most valuable part of your marketing strategy because everything else resides on that. If you're promoting online on Facebook, if you're promoting on Twitter, if you're telling your friends, or you're handing out a business card, that brand is the first thing they know about your project. It's what communicates enough, hopefully, for that person to decide whether they want to go to your website, become your friend, or look at your trailer. So the first step to a marketing campaign that I feel is really successful is knowing that your brand is ready for the campaign. When I look at a logo, it should communicate an idea of the genre, of what's cool about the show. And it doesn't have to explicitly do that, but it has to do it in a way that I have an emotional response. On top of that, it should stand out. if your brand looks like a million other brands, then, or if your movie or your sci-fi series looks like every other sci-fi series, why would I watch it over the other 5 that I know or I'm more familiar with? So brands are really important. So once you have your brand figured out, the next step is not to make salads, because I don't like salads. Some of you might. And what I mean by this is that most people, and I think most marketers and most people I've encountered, they'll say, hey, I have this new product or show or service, and I say, okay, cool, who are your customers, who are your audience? And they'll say, okay, I want everyone to be my audience, or I want everyone with an iPhone to have my app, or I want everyone who watches web series to watch my web series. And the reality is, everyone is great, but you're not going to get everyone. No one gets everyone. But specifically, if you don't know who everyone is, you can't go after them and target them. So the trick is to look at, it's not make a salad, but look at what's in the salad. Don't make big buckets of people. Look at the individual pieces. They're different cuts. They may look similar, but maybe the chef cut them separately. Everyone's an individual. So this is some of our audience for one of my brands, Anna.me, which is an anime and manga community. And even within that bucket of anime and manga fans, which is pretty specific, pretty niche, you still have a very broad spectrum of people that have their own favorite characters, their own styles, their own personalities. And you need to look at your audience the same way. So if you're creating a show and you're saying, my show is a fantasy show, or my project is a suspense, that's great. But look further than that. Say, of that audience that you're looking at, break them up. And so I have a little bit of a model here. And it's looking at the idea of multiple seed audiences. Not just multiple audiences, but multiple seeds. And the reason is, as you'll see, is everyone has a large campaign. I want people that watch horror movies. But that can be broken down. People that watch these types of movies can be broken down into subcategories. Now, other subcategories, you can have people that only watch them online. Or you get people that are younger that have an iPhone, or people that are on Facebook. Then you also have people that only watch horror movies on HBO and have never even gone on YouTube, for example. Each seed audience plays a role. Within any large, what we'll call stratified granular audience, which is just a way of saying a bunch of different people in one big group, I found I could break down any general audience or any niche audience into 12 subgroups. On average, it might be 7, it might be 15, but 12 is kind of a good number. Within that subgroup, which represents the whole audience, one of those groups will be your hardcore fans that are going to donate all their money and they're going to spend all their time and promote you like crazy. Some of them will just be the people that watch it and tells one friend. Some of them will be the people that watch it and buy every piece of merchandise that you guys make. And some of them will be the people that watch it, share it on Facebook, and then never go back to it again. If you break an audience down, you'll be able to identify who those seeds are. Who are your lead-ins? Who are your early adopters? Who are the people that are going to be your long-term hardcore fans and why? The next step, once you have a brand and you know what your general audience is to figure out who those people are, who those groups are, who your lead-in audience is, who are the first people you should go after, and who will that seed lead to next. So the example is with Kogi Barbecue. We started with college students and clubbers and people in tech to talk about it on Twitter. But if you go to the alibi room, you'll get middle-aged family couples that have gone off work early to go try it out, that have never been on Twitter, that have never hung out at a street festival, or otherwise gone to a food truck. So by identifying the sub-audiences within your overall audience group, you're able to actually structure your campaign. And this is what any marketer you hire will do. They'll look at what each sub-audience is and why they matter, and then line them up in an order so that one will feed into the other. The idea behind this is that you're minimizing your costs and optimizing your ability to scale and go viral. Also, for each sub-audience, there's going to be a social media or other mechanism. It doesn't have to be social media. But a mechanism, whether it's print or whether it's on the ground or whether it's Facebook or Twitter or something, that they use to share with your next target. So if you know that people on YouTube will post to their Facebook, and on Facebook you have people that love horror but aren't going to be necessarily involved in social media otherwise, you can use that audience to attract the next larger audience. And thus, you can also target what your first seed groups are and kind of level up in that sense. I'll explain what I mean by that in a second. The next model is the circle of shiny. In the sense that once you've created your brand, you've identified who your real audience is, not just your general audience, you can take each seed and figure out how to make everything you do to attract that audience sustainable and self-growing. Because you don't want to, if you have to go fight for every fan you have, you're not going to get, it'll take you forever to get 1 million fans, let's just say. So you identify your first seed audience. And every seed audience will have their shiny, the thing that they care about. For some people, for some products, like the iPhone, let's say, if I'm a techie, the iPhone is my shiny. I crave that. I want that. If I'm a foodie, a new type of food I've never experienced by a famous chef is my shiny. If you're someone who likes, say, Final Fantasy or the Guild, something in that genre, maybe specifically, maybe Dungeons and Dragons might be your shiny. It may be the product that you have that you're trying to communicate to that audience. It may not be. But knowing what it is will allow you to create something relatively close to it that will draw in that user or that viewer, let's say. So once you create your shiny and you draw someone in, you have their first look. Make sure that's obviously a great experience. Make sure that first 30 seconds is compelling enough to make them to want more. And I think all you guys know that. But beyond that, make it an experience. It can't just be something they're consuming. It has to be something that is interactive. Because interactivity is what's going to set the stage for them to adopt it and own it. If you just watch something, you're an audience member. If you watch something and there's a way to participate at the end, that becomes something that you take part in. When you take part in something, you adopt it. It's really, really simple concepts, but put all together, it creates a really effective cycle. Once someone adopts it, of course, they're going to share it. Whether it's telling your best friend about the cool show you just saw, or posting on Twitter that I just got a new iPhone 5. And to share that, everyone has a mechanism. It might be word of mouth. It could be Foursquare. It could be YouTube comments. It could be a lot of different things. And every seed audience will have a specific mechanism that they prefer. You really want to get your core seed audience to share. And hopefully, whatever they share, maybe it's a recommendation from a best friend, that will create a new type of shiny for a new audience, or the next seed in that line of seed audiences you've identified. That's a circle of shiny. And the idea is that if you get one person with a circle of shiny, that person will bring in at least 1 or 2 or 3 more people. And that cycle will perpetuate itself and create, hopefully, viral growth. So figure out for your product or content, what's the shiny? And most of the time it isn't you. But it's something that is related to what you have that specific audience cares about. And by proxy, if they care about that and you get them with that, they'll start caring about you. Okay, so people are your, like I said, business partners. But ultimately what drives any viral campaign, people become your fire. They become the driving force behind a campaign. So ultimately, unless you have some crazy mind control power, you can't control what every YouTuber comments about your web series. As much as I think that'd be pretty cool. You gotta be a firefighter. And so to that effect, this is a control burn. So this is what, if there's any crazy wildfire, firefighters will actually create a control burn that will direct the direction and hopefully stop the growth or control the growth, depending on what they want, of something that they can't control, which is this crazy raging fire. You have to direct the audience, direct the comments, direct the virality. If you can't do that, it becomes out of control and it could trash you or it could create high expectations that you can never meet. So the logic in that is that once you've created a brand and your brand is refined, good to go, you've got your audience, you've created a circle of shiny, everyone's going crazy about it, loving it, or they're hating it, one or the other, that fire needs to be not just let spread, but controlled and guided. And that can be done by providing mechanisms to comment, websites, giving them insight. It could also be behind the scenes seeding people. It depends on what you're doing. But the core concept is that the fire is powerful. Identify what's driving it and curate it. And curate your audience once you have that virality. Because if you don't, they're going to go in every which way direction, and maybe not towards the goal or reaction that you actually want.